Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of a very interesting little piece right here. This is the Breitling Aerospace wristwatch here. First off, though, I want to thank my buddies over at Lewis Jewelers in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I bought this watch there, bought this one myself, and they've been very kind to me. I've actually bought a bunch of my watches there, and they're also going to be able to be very kind to you. Tell them Nick Shabazz sent you. They'll offer you some special pricing on this and most of your other watch needs. So, anyways, give them a call, and I appreciate very much all their help with this guy, particularly with the bracelet situation. They've been great there. We'll talk about that later. But anyways, let's now do a little bit of size comparison real quick. This is actually a reasonably sized watch, at least for 2018. Here it is against the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean, which is not a reasonably sized watch anywhere. But you can see here the Breitling is relatively thin and relatively small, at least in that domain. Here it is against the Casio Oceanus, another high-end quartz watch sort of piece. And here it is against another quartz sort of thing, the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 there. And now more relevant, let's go ahead and do some measurements of this little guy. We have a overall bezel diameter here of looking to be about 42 millimeters, and I'm doing everything in metric because that's the way things are done for watches. We have a lug-to-lug length, which is often a good indicator of how something's going to wear. It's coming in around 52, although actually that's a little bit surprising to me because this doesn't feel that big. And part of that's because the lugs really dive down pretty effectively, so that's good. Overall thickness of this guy is actually relatively small. We are coming in or around 12 millimeters worth, and then the lug width on this guy is, I believe, 22 millimeters. Let's check that out here. Yeah, we are coming in, and we can confirm, yeah, about 22 millimeters. It's slightly pulled in on the rubber there. So that is your overall size of this guy. It's a reasonably compact watch, like I said, for 2018. And then finally, one thing I'm going to note real quick. This is a quartz watch. In case you haven't figured out by the digital display, this is quartz. Haters, I know. There is a subset of people in the watch world who will not abide a non-mechanical watch and, have joy in hating on any review that is quartz-related. We get it. We know. No heart and soul. We don't need those comments. Feel free to comment constructively, but if your only feeling is, I would never buy quartz, I don't care. So anyways, there you go. Let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting, very quartz watch right here. So first off, on the good side, I actually like very much the fact that this has a nice mix of polished and matte surfaces here. You can see there's a lot of brushing going on, but there are also areas that are more polished. For instance, let's see here. You've got the crown is also a little bit more polished. You've got the polishing going on right here. The background of the dial is a very matte finish, but you can see here that those big numbers, the 12693, are actually very high polished. The polish on those is absolutely gorgeous. The hands themselves on this particular model are polished. That's not going to be the case on like your night mission model, etc. But that's absolutely a beautiful thing. That mix really does lend this guy a nice feeling of, it's definitely a tool watch. And it takes scratches more readily being not polished. I'm sorry, it takes scratches more easily, like the scratches look better, being not polished in the case and bezel, but you still get some area of like, yeah, this is high jewelry, and that's kind of nice. I appreciate that. Next thing, I do like those polished numbers. They look really good, and the reflectiveness of them is really hard to underestimate. This watch does play with light surprisingly well. I'm very surprised. I mean, you look at this, and it looks very tooly, and certainly I'm a tool, so it works, but at the same time, yeah, that's nice. Next thing, this is actually a chronograph watch. What I'll do here is get you to the chrono mode. What I can do is press the crown in, and it's now timing. And it will keep timing and timing and timing and timing. I believe it goes up to 24 hours and then wraps around. But that's a really good thing. I mean, a chronograph is a useful complication. There's a reason people sell so damn many of them. But the other thing is it's a one-button chronograph, because if I want to stop it, I just press the crown again. Want to restart it, I press the crown again. And if I want to reset it, I just hold down the crown, and it resets. That's easy. That's great. It doesn't do like fancy split modes and things like that, but honestly, I don't care. If I'm doing really fancy timing, well, A, I'm probably not going to be using a wristwatch anyways. But B, your phone will do something like that. So the majority of timing needs, at least in my life, are just like, oh, how long is this meeting going to go, etc. Those kinds of things. And that's something where this one button, very subtle chrono works very well and is very intuitive because you don't even have to be looking at your watch. You just pinch the crown, pinch the crown. It's great. You also get, in addition to the chrono function, a time zone function, which we'll talk about actually right now. Why not? Because this is actually showing the same time zone as right now, because this is my home time zone. I'm filming this at home. But for instance, I recently went to Scotland, and I just kept this time zone at home, and then changed the hands to match local time, so I could always look down and know, okay, right now, it's 6 o'clock, it's 6:54 here, that means it's noon there, or, etc. So that's a nice option if you're traveling a great deal. But you also get a timer function, which you can pull out here. If I pull the crown out, it's hard to do that on the wrist, unfortunately, and this is my wrist proxy. Yeah, but if you pull the crown out, you can set a timer here, and I don't need a 24-hour timer. I'll just do a 2-minute timer real quick. Press that in. It'll start counting down, and eventually, during the course of this review, it'll go off. You also get an alarm that you can set to an exact time. So right here, right now I have it set to 5:58 a.m. because that's the last time I was traveling, and I tried to, wake myself up then because I don't know about you, but when I'm traveling, I'll set like 15 different alarms just in case. But that's a very nice thing. Next thing about this guy, the lume on this watch is really, really, really good. It is not really, there's not all that much that's, I'm charging the lume off camera here. There's not all that much on the watch that is lumed, but you can see that it is very, very bright. Those numbers and those hands just light up like a freaking Christmas tree, and they hold on to the light well. This is using a superluminova style chemical lume, and it is absolutely stellar. This is an easy to read watch overnight. Actually, a lot easier than I thought it was and that I worried it might be. So I like that very much. Might as well turn off the flashlight there. Next thing, this does actually feature a rotating bezel. Now, it's a little bit weird to have that, and it's a unidirectional rotating bezel. Usually that's a dive watch thing, but I find those to actually be pretty helpful. Partly to time things, although having a chronograph on this makes that a little bit less necessary, but also for longer sorts of things. Let's say you get on a plane and you're like, okay, I know that this plane is going to land in 9 hours, so I'll just go ahead and, if it's 1 o'clock now, I'll set the time it to be, at 10, and then I know when the hour hand gets there, I get off the damn plane. That's a useful kind of thing, and it's a very at-a-glancey sort of timer. Or sometimes I've used it as kind of a reminder, like I'll look down and I'll say, oh, why did I put that at 9? Oh, that's right, because I need to, drop something off at the post office or something. I don't freaking know. But whatever, it's a good thing. It doesn't hurt anything, so no problem there. Next thing, the bracelet on this guy is pretty awesome. I gotta say, I'm a big, big fan of the bracelet here. Where's that timer at? Let's see here. Oh, 4, 3, 2. Here it comes, here it comes. There you go. Timer went off. Case closed. Yeah. We get it. Thank you. So, yeah, there you go. Next thing, I love the rubber bracelet on this guy in a couple of different ways. To start with, it has this really incredible buckle. It is a solid steel sort of an affair. It's nicely engraved. It's got that nice, again, contrast between the brilled and the brushed and the polished here. It is a milled clip, hence the illed and brilled. It is just beautifully put together as terrible as the stock bracelet was, this is really excellent. You can see here, this is how it's being pinched in there, and that means it's pretty resistant to one-sided opening, so it's not the case you hit one button, it'll pop open. It locks absolutely securely. It's absolutely great, and then the very best part of it is that it has a quick adjust system in here. So right down here, if I press this in, I can give myself instantly more flexibility there, and if if I went too wide, I can just, without even taking the bracelet off, I can pinch it down a little bit. And so very often, as I'm wearing it, if I'm noticing my watch is a little loose, all I need to do is just pop it in one, pop it in one, pop it in one. If I go too far, okay, I take it out, pop it all the way back out, but that's a really good way to do it. Frankly, I like this quick adjust even better than I like the one on the Omega Planet Ocean here, which requires you to take the bracelet off to make any adjustment at all. But I think this bracelet is absolutely excellent. It is not easily resizable, but luckily, although the clasp is very expensive, and that is not great. This clasp comes in, I want to say, around like $300. But the rubber portion itself is only like $90, which is a lot of money, but still, it's nice quality. And although it does have the big branding, in practice, because I have relatively small wrists, 6.5 inches, it just ends up saying bright, which is German for wide, and indeed, this is a wide bracelet, so hey, it's self-descriptive. And it balances the watch well, with the steel on this side, the face on the other. I love this watch on this bracelet. That is absolutely spectacular, and it's something I'm going to recommend every damn day. Next thing, especially on the rubber, but just in general, this is a very durable watch. The entirety of the watch is made of titanium, at least the head of the watch. The crystal on it is a sapphire with a strong anti-reflective coating. It is a quartz movement, and quartz movements are inherently more durable than mechanical movements, which is just a beautiful thing. It has 100 meters worth of water resistance, which, by the way, is one big advantage that the aerospace has over the Omega X33, which is another Swiss quartz pilot-y sort of thing, which only has 5 meters of water resist, which really isn't water resist at all. But this is basically impervious to water. It's going to be very hard to damage just by, whacking it around, so to speak. You can do it, but don't. But it's going to be a very, very durable watch, and it's going to be much more so than any kind of mechanical piece would be. Next thing, it is relatively lightweight and reasonably sized. On my wrist here, sized for my wrist. On my wrist, it'll weigh more because there's a wrist in it. But I'll put this down on my scale here, and we are coming in at 3.25 ounces for the entire kit and caboodle here. And if we compare that to, say, the Omega Planet Ocean, which is a monstrosity, we're coming in at 6.93 ounces. That's nice. Honestly, this is a really nice weight. It feels great, and it works well on the arm overall. Speaking of that quartz movement, I think it's a great quartz movement in a number of ways. I mean, frankly, I think it's one of Switzerland's best movements outright, and I should probably not spit on the watch, but that's kind of the nature of speech, isn't it? But anyways, it has a number of good features. It's got a perpetual calendar. So, it knows it's Sunday the 24th right now, but when the month changes, it knows that it's going to jump to the 1st rather than going to the 31st, etc. That's a beautiful thing. It has the chronograph, it has the timer, it has the alarm. It is a 2 to 4 year battery life depending how much you're using the various functions. It is actually a minute repeater. If you are in this mode and you press the crown in, oh, actually, that's the least impressive time in the history of all time to use a minute repeater, because it literally just tells me it's 1. It's 1 o'clock exactly. So you know what? I'm going to try and do this at the end of the review so you get a better sense of that. But it counts out the hours. Good God, that was uniquely bad. But it counts out the hours with single beeps, and then the quarters with tick-doot, and then it'll count out the minutes after the quarter. So, oh God, 2:17 would be the single beep, 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 and then beep, beep again afterwards. Okay, I am a terrible minute repeater, people. That's why Longa hasn't bought me yet. But anyways, that's beside the point entirely. It is a minute repeater. Take that, Longa, and so on it. Next thing, it is just low effort. It's the final thing about the movement. This is a movement that you really don't have to think about, because it is a high accuracy movement. You don't have to worry about resetting it. You don't have to worry too much about, keeping it wound, because it doesn't wind up. I mean, all you really need to do to this is every 2 to 4 years, take it in for a battery replacement, case closed. That's all you have to go on here. There's not much happening, and so I appreciate that very, very much. I also appreciate the fact that it is relatively simple in its design, but actually very multifunctional. It uses just the one button, that is the crown, to do a number of different things. The crown allows you to see, change the functionality here. It allows you to use things. There's not a bunch of different dials. There's not 15 different buttons on every corner. There's not pushers. There's not random. It's all just done through the crown, and it's done in a reasonably well thought out way. The user experience on this is way better than, for instance, a Citizen Skyhawk or something like that. And there's not a lot of needless stuff going on. Frankly, I appreciate the fact that there's not a second hand on here. You can see here that it's just the hour and the minute hand. You can get the seconds display very easily, but this is great because it avoids triggering mechanical purists. They look at the watch and they're just like, oh, it's a two-hander. They'll pick up on it pretty quickly there, but it doesn't have that kind of jumpy movement that most quartz movements have, and that's kind of a cool thing, I suppose. And then finally, on the good side, this is a high-accuracy quartz movement. This is a movement that is accurate, and I've been testing this over time, over the actually reasonably long time I've owned this guy, since February, and it's June now. I've been testing it over and over again using a phone app that, basically checks the watch time against GPS time, and I am consistently getting basically what'll work out to about 10 seconds a year plus. And it's a very linear kind of thing. It's linear right through the watch. But, it is very consistent time gain, and that's absolutely great. If I have to reset this watch once every couple of years to stay, within 20 seconds, I'm perfectly okay with that. I mean, it's not a crucial thing, but it's very nice, and it has the advantage over some radio control movements. For instance, the Casio Oceanus talks to a radio, the NIST radio signal every night, and so it gets perfect accuracy every night. In fact, you can see that this is actually running slightly behind this guy because this has been running for a little while. But the problem is that if you're not in radio range, then this is working like a regular quartz watch. I'm being absolutely unreasonable here, wanting high accuracy, but the thing is, if you're going to do quartz, Do it up big. One of the advantages that quartz has is accuracy, and pushing that accuracy to a level further, rather than 0.1 seconds per day, 10 seconds per year. That's amazing, and I love that they did that, and I love that they show that they give a damn. This is a quartz movement that they love and that they care about, and I very much appreciate that. Very, very, very much. So to me, all of that is the good. Holy crap, it's 15 minutes, and I'm still doing the good. It's a high accuracy movement. It's simple, no secondhand, so it doesn't scare the mechanical purists. Very nice quartz movement. It's lightweight, durable, with a very nice rubber bracelet. Rotating bezel, good lume, a timer, some alarm, a chrono, polished numbers, and just an overall good mix of polished and flat. To me, though, what's great about this watch, honestly, took me a little while. Because, originally I was thinking, it's high accuracy quartz, that's good. But the thing is, that's not all that useful in the grand scheme. What is great about this watch, though, after wearing it over and over and over again, is that it is just such a damn good tool for telling you the time. I mean, it is perfectly accurate, at least to the level that any sane human would need. It has a great face. It has great lume, so it's always going to be readable. It has a great GMT style function, so you can always keep track of many time zones here. And you can put whatever you'd like, and in fact, you can even do 3 different time zones, where you have this one, you have the hands, then you have the digital readout over here, if you want to configure it in a certain way. That's really, really neat. You get the time of the alarm, the chrono. Look, this may not be the height of fashion, and in fact, my wife informs me that it is, in fact, this is my ugly watch, but by God, it's an incredible mix of high-end fashion and high-end function. I find it attractive, damn it, and I think it is nearly unbeatable as a travel watch. I love wearing this watch for travel, not just because of the easy GMT sort of thing, and the fact that I don't have to worry about accuracy, I don't have to worry about durability. It's just there. It's constantly on my wrist. It's a perfect companion, great lume and everything. It's spectacular. And so I love it, and the thing that I think it makes this greatest is that it is just such a damn good tool. There are very, very few watches out there in the world, I think, that are better at just being there and telling you the time perfectly, competently, and they've done a great job with it. So, to me, at least, that's what's great. This is just an excellent tool watch, 100%. On the bad side, first off, analog digital watches seem to anger people. I said there are a subset of people who hate quartz watches, but analog digital quartz watches get even more hatred. It's just like there is something about this that enrages people, and I kind of love that. And so that there's every time I posted this up on Instagram, there are 1 or 2 people who just feel that they like, Nick, that's the ugliest thing ever. I'm like, okay, whatever. But that's something to keep in mind. It's not going to be to everybody's taste, including my wife's. Next thing, there is no lume on some of the indices here. You can see that although there is lume on the hour hand, or the hours, 10, 11, 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 7, there is no lume at the 12, the 9, or the 3, or the 6. That strikes me as not a great plan. I kind of wish that they had skipped the 60, 45, 30, and 15, and just put a little lume dot there. I think it would have made the watch a little tiny bit more readable at night, although honestly, it doesn't bug me as much as I'd expect. So, there you go. Next thing, the anti-reflective coating shows fingerprints like a boss. Oh, yeah, that's right. And that's something I'm not necessarily in love with. This is a watch I find myself wiping down or cleaning off or rinsing off more often than anything else in my collection, just because whatever they're using is this coating, although it is a beautiful, attractive blue, absolutely shows dirt very effectively. Next thing, the display on this guy is not super readable from a lot of angles. I'm going to kind of move this guy around, but what you're going to see here is that the display really has, it's not all that high contrast. And what that means is that although in the sun it's great, I mean, you can see right now it's clear as day, if I change the angle even a little bit, it's not super readable. And so very often I find myself with this, even in just a moderately lit room during the daytime, having to turn on the backlight, which, by the way, I didn't mention. These displays are backlit, and to trigger the backlight, you just slowly slide the crown up rather than quickly, which changes your function. But that backlight can actually be helpful even during the day, and that's not something I'm super in love with. And so there you go. Next thing, the Swiss are unfortunately not that great at making hard titanium. And although this is made of the same metal as the Casio Oceanus here, the Japanese are just better at titanium hardening, and so this guy unfortunately seems to scratch like DJ Jazzy Jeff. It is a seriously scratchy sort of watch, so that's something to keep in mind. Next thing, the top display on this guy is honestly kind of wasted. What you can see here is that most of the functions, it's not showing anything at all, and then for some of them, it's showing something like alarm, or Chrono, or TZ, or T2, I guess. I don't know which one that is, and TM. And, I get it. That's probably not meant to be a multifunction display. It probably just has those settings in there. But honestly, I kind of wish that we could get like day, date, and then, time zone 2 down here. I think that would be a much better approach here. If we could use that top display for something else, that'd be better. Or frankly, lose the top display and just put like Chrono and whatnot on the top of that one. I don't know. I'm not super convinced that we need a second display up here. And if we're going to have it, I wish it would do more for me than what it's doing right now. Next thing, this has most of the functions are done via short and long turns. So actually here, what I'm going to do is change the local time. Let's pretend we're in a plane. So let's say I want to change the local time by an hour. What I would go ahead and do is give a long turn. So I'll do, and I kind of usually just slide my finger along the crown here. No, that time I went minute. There we go. That time I moved it back by a full hour. And if I use a short turn, it just adjusts the minutes. That's definitely a thing, but it's not a great design because I find it kind of unpredictable whether I'm going to manage to do the full long turn, there we go, or whether I'm just going to end up doing a short turn and adjusting the minute. Now the thing is, it's okay in that they are. I'm going to adjust it mistakenly by a couple of minutes forward here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the full hour forward, and you're going to see it goes back to where it was supposed to be rather than after I screwed up the minutes. So it's kind of aware that this isn't a great process, but the problem is that a short turn versus a long turn is not something I can reliably do, particularly when it's on my wrist. So as much as I like the one button sort of design, it's not great. I've gotten used to it more, but it's not something I think is a great choice overall. Keep in mind. Next thing, the timer on this guy. Unfortunately, remember I just set a 2-minute timer a couple of minutes ago? 2 minutes is a great time. It's a good time for tea. But the problem is, that's now been cleared. It went off and now nothing else is going on. And if I just press the button, nothing happens. What I'd love to see be the case is that there's a timer and it just remembers what your last timer was. So that it goes to 2 minutes, then you turn off the timer, and then you hit the button again and it starts another 2-minute timer. That way you put the tea bag in, you squeeze your watch, in 2 minutes you get a reminder, case closed. Whereas this guy, I have to take it off my wrist in order to pull the crown out in order to set the timer again, and then put it back in there, and very often it's just easier to bust out my phone for that. So I really think that was a really poor choice there. Next thing, that alarm, unfortunately it's very quiet. You had that 5:58 alarm. Practically speaking, I set that guy, and I set my phone alarm for 6, and I did not hear this go off. Given my hand was probably under my pillow at that point in time, but this is not a super loud alarm. I mean, very often, even just wandering around on my day, I have failed to hear the alarm for this guy. This is not a really loud sort of thing. And with any kind of obstruction, yeah, it's not going to work. There's a reason that the Omega has all the crazy resonance chambers to make a loud alarm. This is not something that's great. Next thing, the hour hand on this guy. You can see here that only the very tip of it is loomed. And in fact, if we zoom in a little bit here, we can see that there is this whole area down here that has nothing in it. There's no real reason for that, and honestly, it just makes the hour hand a little bit harder to read in many situations and from some angles. So I would prefer had they fully loomed it and just left that little bar in the middle there to distinguish minutes from hours. I think that would have been a better choice than what they've done here. I don't get that. I've come to live with it, but I still would prefer that fully loomed there. And then finally, oh no, not quite finally, penultimately, Swiss Quartz is behind the Japanese Quartz just by a mile. There is no solar charging on this, which strikes me as a really unfortunate thing. I mean, look at all the dial on this. They could have made that solar. Citizen sure has. There is no atomic radio sync. I think that'd be a great feature for this. It's high accuracy, and it talks to the atomic clock just in case. And it uses a short-term battery still. 2 to 4 years is fine, but they're making 10-year batteries now. Why not just do that, Breitling? Come on. This is a really expensive watch, and I feel like they're not that they're not that advanced in terms of what's out there for quartz. I know that the Swiss is scared of quartz because it damn near killed them at one point in time. But guys, you can't let your national fear of an element distract you from making high-quality quartz movements, and they can definitely improve this. Then finally, on the bad side, this is very, very, very expensive. This is a pricey watch. As configured, you're coming in very, very, very high. Breitling has just rejiggered their prices around, and honestly, it's really hard to figure out what the pricing is. But you're going to be coming in someplace in the 4,000 range on the bracelet. And then on the rubber, it's going to be, but you are looking very, very easily at $4,000 on titanium, and you're looking in the 3,500 to 4 range for the cloth. Again, you contact your local jeweler. Hell, contact my jeweler. DK will help you out a fair amount, make whatever price better. But nonetheless, that is a lot of freaking money for this guy, especially when you can get similar functionality for way less money in the G-Shock line from Casio. Or in Victorinox actually makes a watch that's very similar to this in functionality, although it's freaking huge. I mean, this is a lot of money for something that is fundamentally just a quartz watch. It's a well-done one, but holy crap, Switzerland, come on, you're pushing it here. And so that is, to me, the worst part about this watch, barring the ugly. Which is that this is just really, really expensive, even though it is kind of a tool-focused quartz piece. I feel like if this were made in Japan, it would be half the price, if that. So, anyways, there you go. So that's the bad to me, is that it is really, really expensive. Breitling's pricing is not super transparent, easy to find, and changes regularly. That's bad as well. The Swiss quartz is behind by a mile relative to Japan. The hour hand is not fully loomed. The alarm is very quiet. The timer doesn't remember the last timer, which makes it just a lot harder to use. The short and long turn thing doesn't work that well for UX, although I've gotten used to it. The top display seems like a waste. The Swiss folks make scratchy titanium. The display is not super readable from a lot of angles. The anti-reflective coating shows fingerprints like a boss. There is loom on only some of the indices, and Analog-Digital tends to make people a lot angrier than usual. On the ugly front, the bracelet of this watch absolutely sucks. The thing is, right now this is on rubber, and that's because I sold the bracelet. So in order to show you why the bracelet sucks, we're going to cut to my buddy Nick Shabazz from the past, where I filmed the video before I sold the bracelet. So let's go there. Hey, thanks, Nick from the future. I agree. This bracelet absolutely does suck. And in fact, we're going back into the past here because I'm about to sell this bracelet to somebody else because I have only been able to wear it for like 24 hours or so cumulatively before I realized, no, I can't freaking do it. So I want to highlight why this bracelet sucks and is really, really lazy. At some level, it's very attractive. It's titanium, it's brushed, it matches the watch very, very nicely. That's 100% sure. But the thing is, it has no toolless quick adjust. At a certain point, any kind of watch bracelet should be doing this, and even Breitling's rubber bracelet is able to do this, where you can press this in and get a little bit of adjustment very, very quickly without having fancy tools. This guy does have a quick adjust, but you have to have a spring bar tool in order to be able to use it at all. That's not a beautiful thing. Next thing I gotta say is that, and so they need to be doing that, considering that inexpensive budget brands are doing that in the $500 or $600 range. This is a $3,000 watch plus. You have no excuse for not doing that right and for being lazy here, Breitling. I'm sorry. But more importantly, even if you put aside the lack of toolless quick adjust, which given is something that's come out recently and is, only recently realized is a thing, the bracelet is lacking fundamentally for adjustability in a bunch of different ways. To start with, the links are very, very wide. And what that means is that, particularly the way they're articulated, it's very, very easy for them to be poking into your hands. And specifically, if you have very small wrists, as I do, this is just not going to adjust all that well because the granularity of adjustment is not very small. If you take in and out a link, you're gaining an additional, let's see here, about a quarter, about almost half an inch each time you add or remove a link, and that's just not fine-grained enough. And they don't include a half link. That would have made it a lot better. They had one half-size link, so you could give yourself a little bit more breathing room there. They don't do that. They don't even sell you one, and that's really ugly to me. A lot of people say, well, Nick, it's got this quick adjust. You don't need a half link. That's not a thing. But the problem is you do, because you want the watch to fit in such a way that you're right in the middle of this adjustment range here, so that if your wrist swells up a little bit, or if it shrinks down a little bit, you can use that quick adjust to give yourself a little bit more room. But as it is, if you're right on the edge of that, then you're going to find yourself having a really rough time of it. But more importantly, the tapering on this bracelet means that there are relatively few links that you can remove, and some of these links are fixed. Like this guy, I just wasn't able to get out of there because, well, I mean, that's just the way that the bracelet is designed. And so basically, put differently, Breitling hates people with small wrists. And when you have this guy adjusted to the size of the watch, or to the size of my wrist particularly, with the watch on on there, the bracelet hangs very strangely. It's kind of offset to one side with this big, long, curved area here, just digging into the wrist. This was just supremely uncomfortable. Like I said, I have worn a lot of watches in my life, but for my relatively small, about 6.5-inch wrists here, this bracelet was just frankly unusable. And that really, really sucks. So you need to be able to shift these links around a little bit more than they're giving you the option to do. And so all of this means that although I bought this watch, and I paid a whole bunch of extra money for the bracelet because that was what was available, and I thought they wouldn't do a bracelet this bad, I ended up paying additional money to buy it on a real bracelet, on their rubber bracelet, which is really good, which is really non-lazy. And that's unfortunate. And then I guess the other thing, speaking of the lazy, is look at this clasp. This is just a single piece of bent metal. There's no milling, there's no nothing. It's just like stamped the bent metal here. And then the actual way to keep it closed, it just kind of snaps into position, which is fine, but not all that secure. And then this thing is just going on by friction. Like, seriously, I have had better clasps on a freaking Seiko or a Citizen or something like that. My $500 Casio Oceanus has just a much better bracelet than this. And so this is just the laziest damn bracelet ever, and Breitling should feel bad for having shipped it on a watch this expensive. I really, really dislike this bracelet, and I wish desperately that I hadn't bought the watch on this bracelet. Maybe if you have bigger wrists, it'll fit you better. It'll feel better. Breitling will like you more. But as it stands, I would not recommend that you buy this watch on the bracelet ever. It's just not a beautiful thing. So get it on the rubber or on cloth and buy the rubber. Either way, you'll come out ahead, and you won't have to deal with this lazy little thing. Back to you, Nick of the future. Thanks, Nick from the past. What he said. Look, before I had this watch on the rubber bracelet, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it. I was trying all kinds of different things, trying NATOs, trying, MN straps, trying all kinds of things, trying to figure out, is there a future for me with this watch? Then I got the rubber bracelet, which really is incredible, which makes this a much, much better piece by a mile. And honestly, once I got it on the rubber, I'm in love. This is a keeper. This is a watch that I fall in love with. But a bracelet is a really important part of the watch, and Breitling has no excuse to ship something that lazy on the original. So that's the ugly. The bracelet on this guy is frankly embarrassing for Breitling, and just no, Breitling, bad. So, there you go. That's the ugly. Let's talk about the final conclusion. And my conclusion here is, honestly, this is kind of an imperfect watch at some level. Look, they've made some relatively poor choices in UI with the timer thing, with the long short thing. There were some definitely annoying design choices, like the 60 rather than a loom pip, the hour hand thing. They are way behind Japan in terms of quartz features. I mean, you can get a better movement out of Japan in a $90 G-Shock. The price is very, very, very high for this guy. And like I said, Breitling should be ashamed of selling a watch on this bracelet, because the bracelet, not this bracelet, but on the metal one, because it's worse than things I expect on a Citizen watch that's a tenth of the price. And when they're already charging huge money for a quartz piece whose feature set isn't all that special, they are not allowed to cut corners like that, especially when they've shown that they can do way better in terms of clasps and whatnot. I mean, whoever authorized that bracelet is bad and should feel bad. However, all that said, this is a watch I have really come to love. Because, once it's on the rubber, it is just a well-designed system. It works just beautifully on my wrist. I love it. And because it's on the deployant, it's very easy to take off the wrist if I need to adjust something. Hold on. Pinch it. There we go. Now it fits snugly. Beautiful. It is wonderfully multifunctional. This serves in my watch collection as both my GMT, my chrono, and my only minute repeater. See, that was 17. What did I promise you? Anyways, beside the point there. It's just absolutely excellent in a lot of ways, and it's one of the best travel watches just out there in the world. It is absolutely good to go, and there are many watches out there that I like, and even watches that I own that I like, but none of them are as low drama as this guy is once you get past the drama of the price. And so I think this guy is absolutely going to stick around, both as sort of the high end of quartz in my collection, as well as just because it's a great freaking tool. The price, though, of course, is the elephant in the room. This is a very, very expensive watch, and similar functionality can be had from a watch that is $100, $300, someplace in the G-Shock line, or the Casio Wave Scepter maybe, or some of Citizen's quartz pieces. You can get really similar feature sets for much, much less money. And this is undeniably fancy. Absolutely 100%. You're paying more because it's Swiss. You're paying more because, I mean, the freaking polishing on this, the dial is great in that way. You're paying for the fancitude, that's for sure. sure. And if this were made anywhere other than Switzerland, it'd be much more reasonably priced. But it is beautiful. It is undeniably, I think, high-end. I think it's beautiful. Sorry, wife. It is undeniably high-end, and it is absolutely functional. And, of course, there are going to be a contingent of commenters who've written the angry comments already, and I've seen them all already. There is no way I would pay more than $20 for a quartz watch. This doesn't have any heart and soul. Just buy a Casio, you bourgeois bastard. I can hear them now. And, they forget, though, that there are people like me who are enthusiastic about quartz watches, who feel it's incredible that you've got a little crystal and they're vibrating like this many, many thousand times a second with thermocompensation, and they're confusing their own feelings on the matter for reality. But the thing is, the point stands. You have to be okay with having $4,000 on your wrist and with that $4,000 being quartz. A lot of people aren't going to feel that way. I get it, but I disagree. But the thing is, look, I like this watch a lot. I would call this watch a gem, even though it's really pushing it with that bracelet. Once it's on the rubber, and had I paid the original price on the rubber, I'd feel a lot better about that. But the thing is, if you are a pilot, if you are a quartz lover like myself, or you just want a watch that is frankly a better traveler than you are, and you're willing to put down big money for a little vibrating crystal, then I think this watch is going to be a gem for you as well, and I think you might consider taking off with the Breitling Aerospace. So there you go. I hope this is interesting to you, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.